Hi, I'm Alice Hoffmann, an indie artist from Austria specialized on manga art. This is the last part of my life story series, for now. I'll also finish the artwork I started last time. Let's dive right into it. I had a few ups and downs after high school, where I burned a year in a law university course. It really wasn't my thing, as you can guess from me not being a lawyer now. Gladly, I managed to get into a university course for media technology and design. Much better suited for me. In university, I still had huge social anxiety and intended to keep my distance from new people like at the end of high school. Eventually, some people managed to melt my heart, and I'm glad about that. When it comes to the things we learned, homework and all that, I had a tough time keeping up. Sometimes I stayed up until 4 AM scratching together my homework. The difficult part was the programming subjects indeed. Back in high school, I was often the best at the little beginner programming stuff we did, but in university I was struggling big time. All the design subjects were awesome though. It's a pity my university didn't offer a more art-focused course back then. I forgot everything I had learned about programming anyways. The environment of the university was really nice in a little town with lots of nature. It was the first time I was living away from my parents too. My diet definitely wasn't ideal, but I guess you have to start somewhere. I eventually graduated from university. It was fun enough while it lasted, but I'm glad the cramming is over. Getting my driver's license and job hunting were both a huge challenge. I failed my first practical driving test and had to bulldoze my anxiety so I could get this over with. Most people say I'm a reliable, good driver now, so there's that. I found a job after about half a year of really putting in my everything to get as many interviews as possible and improving my applications and answers every time. This whole business made it painfully clear to me once more that I seem to feel off to most people. I could have been a good fit for most companies I applied to in terms of skills, but something in the way I carry myself puts people off so intuitively. There seems to be no way to fight that. So yeah, I'll stay at my job until the day that they kick me out screaming. Apparently there is no need to fear that happening, as my boss is generally very satisfied with my stuff, and also I'm willing to keep learning new things. I'm getting used to my inner voice that never shuts up about me being maybe one tiny mistake away from basically landing on the streets. It will keep producing these thoughts, but I don't have to let it color my days bleak. Trigger warning for the next part in case you are currently mentally unstable. You might want to skip ahead a bit. So some years ago, a family member attempted suicide. Gladly they survived and are now in a great condition, but at the time it was a highly impactful event, of course. Easily one of the most dreadful moments we've ever faced. I felt intense guilt, even if friends said that it's no one's fault and all that. It changed me. While I was sad before that, now I felt that I really needed to fix my problems and do whatever it takes. I became a self-development devotee. I fell in love with to-do lists, self-help and psychology books, meditation and running. Big changes take a lot of time, but I still knew in my heart that I can do it. That's just the level of faith it takes. But even with overhauling my private life myself as much as I could, I also felt a big need for professional help. And so I started my journey with therapy. That was a huge step for me, as no one I had known at the time, except for the formerly suicidal family member, had ever been in therapy. It had tremendous stigma around it, and I didn't discuss that with most people for a long time. It seemed that it would be too much of a risk to even mention. So, of course, I couldn't get advice about which psychologist to pick, and I just went with pretty much the first person whose website seemed a bit more inviting than the others. I'd also like to mention that I paid that fully out of pocket. I didn't even know how to find therapy that's covered by healthcare, at least partly. It turns out it would have taken forever to get a spot that way, and the therapists that offer that service are oftentimes overworked and under-enthusiastic in their sessions. I really hope this will change, because it could have a huge impact on society, in my opinion. Anyway, my first therapist did their best, but their approach only went so far for me. I was stuck after having told them pretty much everything there is to tell, and yet I still had intense physical reactions to certain everyday life events. I really wanted to get diagnosed so I could actively investigate coping strategies as well. That therapist is one of those who doesn't believe in diagnosis, which led them to also not be very skilled at it. I think it would have been better for them to just admit that and be honest about it instead of giving me the diagnosis of BPD, so borderline personality disorder, paired with I don't think it fits very well. I still got attached to the diagnosis because it was finally something to research about my situation. Of course, most stuff about BPD didn't really make sense for me, but I told myself, oh gee, I must have a mild form of it then. I'm glad that I later saw an interview about someone who had done EMDR therapy. That immediately felt like the right direction, and it was. In case you've never heard of it, it's a form of trauma therapy that works with patients looking left to right repeatedly while working through difficult memories. Turns out the accident I had as a baby was enough to set off CPTSD as a consequence. Or if you'd like another mouthful of a word, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So the interesting thing is, while of course I can't even remember my freaking accident because I was a baby, I don't have direct memories, but I often had emotional flashbacks, so extreme emotional reactions to just relatively minor stuff. Anyways, my EMDR therapist did their best to hide their disappointment at the first diagnosis I got when I told them about it. But yeah, it's a shame that seemingly any woman with volatile moods gets a BPD diagnosis right away like it's fucking free candy. The awesome thing about EMDR therapy is that it can relatively quickly and easily resolve extreme somatic reactions. For example, I used to get what felt like mini heart attacks anytime I reached for my wallet and didn't immediately find it. Because at some point a certain person stole my wallet. But the important part is I used to get those mini heart attacks. Not anymore. As much as EMDR helped, that didn't completely solve the puzzle around certain parts of my condition. I thought I might never find out about that last part. Maybe I was just a little weird and incompetent at certain things. And then my youngest sibling told me that we might be autistic as there is new research about assigned female at birth people and autism. I didn't think this would be it at the beginning, but I started to occasionally look into it out of curiosity. I fell down the rabbit hole and eventually booked a private assessment with Sarah Hendricks. I recommend her books and talks on YouTube, by the way, if you want to try out that rabbit hole for yourself. It's a good one. So, funny story. Some time ago I had seen someone's sketchbook and he did a fantastic job at studies. When I later mentioned to my mother the gorgeous dead fly and three-dimensionally warped seating area inside a plane that the guy had drawn, she told me that it could be that the artist might be autistic. I thought to myself, oh man, apparently I'm a weirdo anyway, so why can't I just also be autistic so that it pays off in some way? So yeah, turned out I was autistic all along. This explained so much. For a while I grieved the time and energy I had wasted trying to bend myself into shape to fit in with society. I'm still working on being more myself, even if it seems risky at times. I want the world to change into a kinder one. I'd like to become the things that felt so hard for me to become non-issues. And I'd rather do my part than stay comfortable but gloomy in a dusty, old, way too small box. I've spent enough time with my past. Now I'm in the middle of creating my future. I hired a coach to get that done more efficiently. It may sound more fun than therapy, but I think it's at least as much work. But in a good way. And it's so worth it to me. One thing that I really enjoy about exploring myself is how invigorating it is whenever I encounter a breakthrough or insight of some sorts. I didn't think it would be possible, but even my relationships with my parents got healed along the way. Considering that I had times where I deeply hated them, that's wonderful. My father now unfortunately is in the beginning stages of dementia, but at least we have some time left. And believe it or not, I recently realized that I indeed have a lot of friends by now. Some years ago I started organizing artist meetups. That way I met a lot of like-minded local people, and while it took a while, it blossomed into a bunch of neat relationships. By now someone else manages the meetups, and so I get to relax. Outside of those artist meetups and anime conventions, I meet with friends maybe like once every few months. By now I learned to accept that my ideal friendships just look different from the typical TV friendship TM, and that's okay. I still have things to enjoy as a beginner, like running. It really makes me feel like a complete noob, as my condition isn't that great yet. But it's fun to just love a process without needing to fulfill a huge goal. I definitely want to apply this to other areas in life too. And since I heard a while ago how ultra runners allegedly all have demons, I'm curious to find out how far my demons will carry me one day. Every now and then I still have a hot minute where I seek the death of the sun and just want everything to be gone. But with time it's getting easier to see it for what it is. A passing mood. All in all, it's getting easy to create now. I'm letting go of more judgments against myself and others and it leaves me lighter. Well, this is my life story so far. I left out a lot of course to keep it concise. I didn't even list my favorite shows, so how exhaustive can it be? There's always other videos. Have an excellent day. See you another time. Bye!